In 1997, a little-known game called Final Fantasy VII shimmered onto the PlayStation 1. It's hardly a controversial thing to say that the praise that game is lavished with is well-earned. The story is full of intrigue, the characters are fascinating and layered, the world-building captured the hearts of an entire generation, and it has one of the strongest game openings of all time. A quick cinematic establishes Midgar's steamy industrialization, symbolically portraying Aerith as the natural world swallowed up by metal and concrete. There's a rousing rhythm as we join the aggressive close-ups of a train pulling into the station of the Mako reactor. Our team, Avalanche, are competent as they infiltrate the plant, but they're not as professional, not as cool as our main character Cloud, shown to us by how he somersaults from the top of the train in all of his blocky glory while the others just clamber out. We get a few encounters with Shinra guards, all easily defeatable with one swipe of our sword to give us a sense of empowerment and to highlight that whoever Cloud is, he's been doing this for a long time. As we race through the action, we learn about Avalanche's goals, what Mako is, why Shinra are the bad guys, and we're introduced nice and early to Barrett's distrust of Cloud and Cloud's cynical worldview. We learn about exploration and items, how parties work, why spells are important, and even get a tease of the game's overarching mystery when Cloud is warned that the Mako reactor isn't just a reactor, culminating in a boss battle with the guard Scorpion, which ups the stakes and the difficulty to make the player think. All of this happens before our first 10 minutes are up. Conflict, motivation, tone, and gameplay are taught to us in the time it takes to finish a cup of tea. It's so good that the remake replicated it down to a T, just stretching it out longer so that the shiny new voice acting and animations could have some room to breathe. Now I know what you're thinking. You clicked on this video because you saw Sora on the thumbnail and because you want to yell at me for being a big fat Kingdom Hearts contrarian. Why am I rambling about Final Fantasy VII? Well, 5 years after Final Fantasy VII, Tetsuya Nomura moved away from the character work he did on Cloud's adventure, took everything he learned from his time with Final Fantasy, and applied almost none of it to his new game Kingdom Hearts. Where FF7 was so efficient with its storytelling, using an economic opening to get us pumped, excited, and curious about the game to come, Kingdom Hearts opening, while iconic, sluggishly drags us into tedium, as if embarrassed of all the charm and fun stuff that appears after we leave Destiny Island. This is a shame, because the only thing it should be embarrassed about is the gummy ship. In January, we'll be covering Kingdom Hearts for one of my other series, Lore Dump, where we explain the plot of a game franchise to someone who hasn't played those games. We also have Fortune, who has a seemingly supernatural ability to make bullets miss her. And we finally have Vamp, a vampire. So we're also... Yeah, I know, I'm excited too. So in advance of untangling the world of darkness, hearts, and keyblades next month, let's look closely at the opening of the first Kingdom Hearts, to see what we can learn about how a game franchise should introduce itself to its audience, and how Sora's story misses the mark. This is the first 10 minutes.
I've been having these weird thoughts lately. Like, is any of this for real? Or not?
Now, I'm going to criticize a lot of stuff here, but just to go on the record, the Kingdom Hearts anime-esque OP dream sequences are always fantastic, and as an introduction to the tone of the series, we could do a hell of a lot worse. Sora's first line is interesting, asking if any of what he's seeing is real, and this introduces us to the dream logic, which is such a staple of the overarching narrative. As much as Kingdom Hearts lore is gobbledygook and jibbermajosh, the first game in the series is clearly self-aware. It knows that a lot of this is going to sound like nonsense, and by having our protagonist immediately question his surroundings before the weird stuff even begins, acts as a comfort blanket to the player. Don't overthink this, just enjoy it. Sadly, I didn't get the memo. Sora's dream sequence establishes his friendship with Riku and Kairi. We see his joy and excitement as he sees them flitting in and out of his dream, but when Riku reaches out to him, an ominous tidal wave floods from behind, keeping the two apart much like Maleficent will during the game's main plot. Kairi's fate too is foreshadowed. She's separated from us when Sora falls away from her. She's trapped in another world. It's when control is given to the player that the opening descends into drudgery. This is made all the more frustrating by the fact that Sora is falling through the sky and running around his beach to pop music for almost 3 full minutes, and all we've learned is that he likes this cool bastard and this dull idiot. For context, by this minute in Final Fantasy VII, we're almost at the Mako reactor. There's a frustrating segregation we feel in these first minutes between the world building and the gameplay. Over 30 tutorial boxes pop up, uninvited and forceful, at a rate of 3 to 4 seconds. The game is shameless about the fact this is a tutorial room, but it grossly outstays its welcome with 5 princess platforms to wade through and an interlude. Everything we are taught here should have been taught in the main story, and you could forgive Kingdom Hearts for this segregation if after we left the dream sequence we immediately jumped into the adventure, but all of the lessons we are taught about movement, camera angles and how to engage with the combat are just repeated and eked out over a monotonous 45 minutes of doing chores on the island after the fact. The mural of Snow White which Sora jogs around is awe-inspiring and is here to teach us that just like this mural, the Disney stuff serves no purpose in the game. Okay, that is a little harsh. If we're going to plop the player down in a tutorial box for 10 minutes, I can imagine worse environmental design, but there's no thematic, character or story relevance to it being Snow White, other than to remind us that Disney characters are in this game too. Look, here's the first ever Disney princess. Just hold on and wait another hour for Sora to meet the rest of them. I'd argue that there's just one Disney princess we should see here, Belle, the best Disney princess, and the one that aligns most with Sora's character motivation. Just like Belle, Sora desperately wants it's his driving force once we leave the dream and land on the island. Sora wants to travel, wants to see what's out there, wants to find adventure, and whilst I appreciate Belle showing up as the final platform to highlight that, it just makes Snow White, Cinderella, and Aurora trite in retrospect. Before we know anything at all about Sora or the game mechanics or the charming as hell world that Kingdom Hearts cultivates, the player is struck with a confusing, muddled choice. A sword, a shield, and a staff are held upon plinths. The player is instructed to choose one and give up the other. The power of the mystic, inner strength, a staff of wonder and ruin. You give up this power? What does this mean? You can intuit that the sword will give you a better attack and the shield will give you better defense, but the inclusion of the staff muddies the waters. I find it strange that the game is so anal about teaching you how the camera works in these first moments, but so vague about the existence of magic and how you're expected to use it. The most vital mistake here is that the game doesn't give you a fight against the shadows first, so you can get a sense of how magic, defense, and melee work before you make your choice. It's asking you to choose blindly, and there's no benefit to it. Even after choosing, the game doesn't offer up a clear differentiator in the following battle, so the player is left as confused about the consequences of their choice as they were before they made it. Choosing magic still just forces us to bonk baddies with a staff. This ain't Dark Souls. You look at this cover with a heart-shaped moon and a sad Donald and Goofy mixed with this introductory cutscene with its song about not wanting to meet your boyfriend's dad, that's true, look at the lyrics, and stir it in with a tutorial that locks you in a room so it can teach you how walking works, and it sucks the energy out of the opening while also setting the player up to expect a handheld experience. And aside from these choices and some secrets, Kingdom Hearts is a handheld experience, so it muddies the water of what game feel the player should psych themselves up for. By minute 7, we are standing on the Aurora platform with an arbitrarily translucent door that we can't open, and this is the way that the game teaches us, with more tutorial boxes grinding the pace into a halt that we can interact with objects in the environment. We open a chest and get nothing for it, break a barrel, and look at that, the door can suddenly be opened. Thank you, game. During this interlude, we meet 3 characters that the game pretends are important for the first hour, but end up contributing nothing after we leave Destiny Island. Tidus, Waka, and Selphie ask us questions about what's important to us, what we're afraid of, introducing an element of role-playing to our control of Sora, and depending on which options we choose, it also defines how quickly we'll level up in the rest of the game. The issue here is there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to what we choose and how it impacts the game mechanics. When Selphie asks us what's important to us, we get three choices, being number 1, our prized possessions, these are dickhead answers chosen by dickheads, or friendship, which is in keeping with the Disneyfication of it all. The issue is, out of these answers, it's not communicated to the player what these will do, and even if it was, our choices don't have any correlation to how quickly or slowly we'd want to level up. Oh, and just when it looks like we're about to start the game for real, at the 9th minute we drop back into the tutorial rooms for a longer combat section against the shadows, and before our time is up, we're introduced to our first boss, Darkseid. We haven't really learned much from our time on the Princess platform, so it's hard to call Darkseid a culmination of everything we've learned, a staple of most tutorial bosses. What he's truly here for is to simulate that dream logic even further. The way the camera concentrates on Sora as it rears up, displaying this imposing size before the battle begins, gives it a sense of real gravitas. The most effective thing about Darkseid, the thing I genuinely love about this fight, is the lack of a health bar. Without the scan ability, which Sora can later unlock, we don't get any sense of how much damage we're doing to our villains and foes. Because we can't see a health bar here, and because Sora has been pulled from pillar to post for the past 10 minutes, that confusion the player has felt with the choices and the use of landscape comes to a head as we frantically run around, wailing on Darkseid, hoping against hope that we are hurting him. This is awesome, because the confusion here leads to understanding once we finally defeat him. He doesn't have a health bar, but he still has HP somewhere, whereas the chat with our fellow islanders and the choice of weapon both don't have an aha moment tied to them unless you look it up afterwards.
Whoa! Give me a break, Kairi.
Sorry, you lazy bum.
The epiphany we are left with is given to us when Sora finally awakens on the beach, with Kairi next to him playing in the sand. We've been taught that economic storytelling is not something which is a priority for Nomura or Kingdom Hearts, not like it was for the team he was a part of on Final Fantasy VII. This is continued for the next 45 minutes on Destiny Island. While we learn about what motivates Sora, Riku and Kairi while they go about their daily chores, simulating that boredom they feel and desperation to escape the island, well, it still means that Kingdom Hearts opening is really boring. It may be iconic, but it's still a problem. Thanks for watching. Before we round off the year, I wanted to highlight my thoughts on the 3 biggest Kingdom Hearts games, as well as use this wee series to give a shout out to Lore Dump before we tackle the franchise in full in January, so expect a video on Kingdom Hearts 2 and 3 before the month is out. Massive thank you to my patrons, as always they help me invest in ways to improve on my videos from a technical standpoint. We might even be able to upgrade the podcast setup in the next few weeks because of them. So order of thanks go to Ike N, Kyle Naylor, The All Brand Man, Jake, Tempe, Courtney Wampler, Anthony Holder, Pierre Carrier, Sergey Darn, James Rush, David J. Moran, Stephen Faeo, Minute Zero, Iskerton, Callum Armitage, Christopher Tierney, Torstein Sundness, Fipsy, Derek DeRosia, Luca, Tom Inns, Heliquin, Matthias Santoro, Retarget, Sierra Purnell, James Keysbury, Jordan, Kazi7, Uncle Mr. Bones, Alberto Calez, Stephen Atkins, Austin Hagerman, Lee, Austin Long, Type Braz, Matthew Bendel, Dini, Zachary Powers, Andrew Muinos, Compulsory Fungus, Loar Zappelli, Prospero finished by dissertation, Neweng Guterres Nopov, Lizzie Gale, Salvador Castillo, Alan Black, Callsign Noor, David Bedard, Ross Williamson, Derek 8, The Riftmaker, CC, Jared Helfer, Graham McLaughlin, Semlin, Beth Littler, Oliver Farrell, John Foster Agg, Robert Capel, Elevator, Rose Bernarda, Matt McCulloch, Guillaume Barreras Ferreira, Ethan, Paul W, Damp Gibbon, Please Don't Blame, Chief Sweep, Ehor May, Jonathan Lum, Paper Synth, Thomas Banchak, Eddie Wingfors, Reese Newton Seeley, Nicholas Here, Cakesters, Strupp, Angry Optimist, Plague Doctor, Adriana Martinez, Jana Grasfrau, Chris, Jake Kluzovitz, Long Cheddar, Jordan Halsey, Amory Selden, DB Geek, Ryan Smith, Toxter, Donis Conva, Ashley Broning, 100 Sams, Neil Dudgeon, Michael Diaz, Nathaniel Waters, Dinkin Pearson, Kyle Pears, Seb Scott, Lonely Ronan, Crisp Bread, Zephyr Dawn, Kane Highwind, Neve Care, and Johnny Miller. You guys are awesome. Take care.